Hello, everyone. Welcome to Expanding Your Power. I am your host, SAKC, and we are coming to you today with a very special guest. All of our guests are special, but not all of our guests are in Australia, so that makes her special. My guest today is the award winning high performance coach and trainer, Amazon best selling author, and international motivational speaker, Kimberly Spencer. She is the CEO and founder of Crown Yourself Coaching. And we are going to bring Kimberly in. Hello, Kimberly. How are you?
Hi, SA. How are you?
I am great. I am great. I'm a little jealous about your weather over there, but it's all fine.
Yeah, it's beautiful over here. We're heading into summer, and apparently, I've been warned by the Australians that it can get quite hot and humid and muggy. But I've only experienced one of those days thus far, so I think we're good so far. We shall see. I'll report back in a couple months when we get through summer.
Okay. How long have you been there?
We have been here since March. My husband was appearing at a convention down here with, ironically, the cast of The Walking Dead as amidst a pandemic breaking out. And so he was appearing, and we just were in the Gold Coast, and we saw that lockdown was going to be pretty much imminent worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, if we're going to get locked down, we might as well do it with the beach as our backyard. So my business was in a place to support that. And I said, okay, let's grab an Airbnb. And so we've stayed in an Airbnb, and we just got our first more permanent place that's not an Airbnb right now, like just 2 weeks ago, which I was so happy about. And it's been a joy and a journey ever since.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So tell us, Kimberly, who are you?
Oh, that's a very I am that I am. Like if we want to get really cerebral about it. um, well, like you said, I'm a high performance coach and trainer. And my background though was not always coaching. Like I didn't grow up dreaming that I would one day be able to coach leaders. I actually grew up wanting to be a princess and wanting to be a actor, writer, producer, director, and bigwig in Hollywood, and a princess as well. And so
Of
I,
course.
I fast forward to now, as an entrepreneur, you kind of are all those things. You're the performer, you're the one doing the podcast, you're the one doing the live streams and the Instagrams and the photo shoots, and you're also the director. You're the director of the show, you're directing your team if you have one, you're directing the direction of how you want the overall picture of your business to look. You're a producer. If you're financially supporting your own business, you're the executive producer. So it really turned into, I went from being a screenwriter in Hollywood to a certified Pilates instructor to an e-commerce business owner. This is my third business, and it's been such a joy because this one feels the most aligned out of all the ones that I've had. Um, and was complete divine intervention because 3 weeks before I got married, I was bought out of my e-commerce company, and I was left on my honeymoon like, what the F am I going to do? Because I had no idea. I'd accomplished so many big things. I'd gotten a script produced and on Netflix, and I'd run 5 marathons, and I'd owned two multi-six-figure companies, and I grew our product to be able to be featured in Times Square, and I pitched it to the first round of Shark Tank. And so I'd had all these accomplishments in my life, but nothing really, like, I was so multi-passionate. It didn't, like, if you look, there's no through line from what I could see back then. But now I see that my through line has always been, I've always been in the business of transforming people's stories from what's they perceive to be impossible to what is absolutely possible and actually becomes their reality. And that's always been my jam. That was my jam when I was putting on backyard princess shows when I was 5. that I would also sell, bags of glitter water and enroll the parents to buy tickets. Parents are great, by the way, because if you put on a production with children, you have the built-in audience that will pay for tickets. Like
Absolutely. The whole family. The whole family.
Yep. But I always admired stories of transformation. I never liked weak princesses. I never liked, ones that just had to be kissed or lose a shoe just to, transform their life. I wanted someone that actually had to go through something, that actually had some challenge that they had to face, and to be able to rise into who they needed to be. And I think I saw that very much, and I knew that from a very, very young age, almost intuitively, because I saw how people could choose not to be the best of themselves. Because growing up, I had two lovely parents, but they both had their problems. My dad was an addict and my mom was a total codependent. And so I saw my dad make choices that when he was sober, he was like the best dad. He was amazing. And when he was drunk or on pills or whatever, it was a choice that I saw him in a lower state. And I just knew at a deep level, like that, you can choose differently. Like you can choose to rise. And I'm not saying that it's easy. It certainly is not, especially from addiction. But I saw the power of choices, and I saw the power of how challenge and struggle can either make you into who you really are born to be, or can destroy you based on your mindset about it.
Right. Mindset is amazing. I mean, people, like right now with the COVID situation, are you finding that people are more afraid to make these changes and get on board in terms of coaching?
It depends. Like all of my clients, every single one of them who was coaching with me through COVID, they all successfully pivoted their businesses, grew to greater profit, and expanded their teams. So they created jobs. Now, what I've seen in the space, though, is that people who were uncertain before are more uncertain now. People who were uncertain but may have had proof of their capability are either finding their resilience to push forward and to figure it out and to make it work, or they are going into their excuses. So and here's the thing is your excuses are 100% valid. Like, yes, there is a pandemic going on. Yes, there is a recession that is happening and possibly a depression. Like there is some major stuff going on in the world. Yes, but you can live into those external things really impacting you.
Absolutely.
Or you can choose to have a different attitude. So one of my favorite books that I always recommend is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. So have you read it?
No, I haven't. I haven't read that.
Oh, it's so good essay. So Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor and he was a therapist, and they stripped everything. He lost everything. He lost his family. He lost everything. And he was put in a concentration camp. They took his papers from him, which was like the last thing that he had on him. And while he was in the concentration camp, he decided to use that as a study for human behavior, which eventually turned him into writing this book, Man's Search for Meaning, on like, what is it that is really driving men and humanity, and not just men not just men, but the women in humanity in general. And what he saw, he said that between cause and effect, between something happening externally, because not just because something happens doesn't mean it's your fault, but it is your responsibility to choose your response to it. And so he said, between cause and effect, there is a moment. And that is the moment where you have the choice of choosing your attitude to how you respond to it. And I'm certainly not saying it is easy. I have failed so many times, and I was put in none of the circumstances that Viktor Frankl had to go through. But when you look at somebody who's gone through such loss and who experienced such tragedy, be able to turn a horrific stripping of your humanity experience into one of learning and growth, that's somebody I'll pay attention to. Because that just shows the power of the mindset. Because mindset's kind of a buzzword that's kind of being thrown around a lot. And why mindset is so important is because 95 to 97% of your decision making and your responses are all subconscious. So how do we break from that 95 to 97%? Like, because willpower ain't going to do it.
Right.
But what happens is we have to honor the learning process that we go through to unlearn some of the behavior that we may have learned to adapt and survive growing up. And that's one of the things that I had to do throughout my childhood, because one of the behaviors that I learned to adapt and survive was ignoring my emotions. I saw my dad escape from his emotions into a bottle or into a bottle of pills. Or I saw my mom suppress and repress and pretend like her emotions didn't exist. And so both frames of dealing with these things called feelings, I didn't know how to deal with. And so I modeled their behavior, because when you're a kid, you don't know better. And so I took that into, I would repress and suppress my emotions into food. And that turned into a 10-year battle with bulimia that I experienced. Wow. And I reprogrammed my mindset, and I did it with no psychological or medical intervention. I don't recommend that for everyone, but I did it.
Right.
I did it by changing my identity and looking and examining my triggers and looking and examining my responses to things. So let's say, for example, back when I was bulimic, and I knew that what I was doing was killing myself. I knew bulimia and anorexia and any form of a serious eating disorder it's a slow form of suicide, and I didn't want to die. And so I knew I had to find a better way. I just didn't know how, and I didn't know what better way there was out there. And so I started seeking answers. And as I was seeking those answers, I allowed myself to start questioning my behavior. If I was triggered and I ended up throwing up my food, I would go back and I would think about what was it that caused that trigger? Like, what feeling was I not allowing myself to feel? What thought, what circumstance? Was it the people I was hanging out with? Was it something someone said? And I started to see myself not as my thoughts and not as my feelings, but almost examining my life and my behavior kind of like an anthropologist. And when you're able to take that sort of perspective on your life, it really gives you, and that's one of the reasons why I so believe in coaching and the power of coaches like you and me and so many others that are coming forth and through and starting their own businesses, because coaching gives you this beautiful thing called perspective. And right. When somebody is able to question the perspective that you have been holding, which so often we have tied into our identity of like, no, that's who I am, or no, that's just how it is. When somebody brings up a question, a belief is just a thought you think on repeat, and an ingrained belief, and a belief that creates your identity. That's a belief you've thought on repeat really, really hard with a lot of emotion behind it. And it's probably had some experiences in your life that certainly back up that belief as being valid and true for you. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. And that belief may have served you up to this point, but it doesn't mean that it will serve you for where you want to go.
Absolutely. You are all in my latest book that's coming out next week.
Awesome.
All in it. It's called Dropped But Not Dead.
Nice. I
You know,
like it.
they didn't know they didn't know who you were, because you grow, like you said, you grow up with these beliefs and you believe that, there were things that you saw in your household. I mean, the way, I know I picked up the way my mom reacted when my dad did something. I found myself mirroring that. And I'm like, wait a minute. This,
Yep.
this reaction is not the best reaction to the situation. We all grow up with those things. And the funny thing is, people like Les Brown, who,
Mm-hmm.
grew up in foster care and, and was left and abandoned. Dr. George C. Frazier,
Mm-hmm.
another one. These people, there was something else calling them. And with you, there was something that was greater calling you.
And I
And
think that's the beauty is following that curiosity and that calling. Because I think one of the things that we get so caught up in is this realm of shoulds of, oh, I should go to college, or I should do this, or I should follow this path, or I should have a steady job, or I should do, this, that, and therefore, and whatever. I should get married, or I should do this. And we get into this realm of shoulds, and most shoulds are what I call plagiarized programming. And so plagiarism, that's just adopting somebody else's belief and accepting it as yours. That's not necessarily true for you. And so we're adopting all of this plagiarized programming and these shoulds as how our life should be, when really we're not questioning what is that calling that is on our hearts, that is on our minds, that is that thing, and then getting curious about that and allowing for that exploration and discovery instead of this finite box and path of checked marks and how our life quote unquote should be.
right. And that, like I said, that comes from growing up and, everything so perfect, having jobs that, 30-year jobs,
And
which
no
are
one had, like, that model does not exist anymore. Like
not
this
anymore.
COVID certainly brought that to light, because massive institutional systems are just crumbling. And we're seeing that, like, parents are getting more creative about their kids' education. They're seeing that their kids need to learn in different ways. Like, I did not thrive in a classroom environment. And I learned this at a very young age. When I was in high school, I got mono. Unfortunately, it wasn't from kissing. It was from sharing a Diet Coke with a friend of mine. And so yeah, that unfortunately wasn't from kissing. It was very sad. Um, lame way to get mono. But I got mono, and so for 6 months I was battling, and I was exhausted, and I was practically out of school off and on for 6 months. But I had and maintained the highest GPA I'd ever had. And it was because that was when I learned,
Wow.
oh my gosh, I learn on the job. I learn on my own time. I learn from exploration and discovery. I get so restless sitting in a desk, like sitting behind a desk of something that I'm not interested in. So like I would take my science out into nature and actually be able to sit in nature and be able to experience the birds around me. And then that would allow me to get curious about, the insides of frogs or whatever it was that I was learning. But it was that really kind of was that intuitive gut call, that when I had the opportunity to go to college with 2 scholarships, and I also had the opportunity to jump into this acting class when I was 17 years old, this prestigious acting school where Ashley Judd had trained and James Franco, and it was all in Meisner and Meisner acting method. And I had this gut intuition that was like, I actually need to do that. And I
Yes.
dropped out of college 2 weeks before I was supposed to start. I didn't go to college. People ask me like, oh, you must have a master's degree in what you're doing. I'm like, I have some college experience from community college, but that is what I got. Everything else is by experience. And I am a learning and self-learning junkie. So I'm a certification junkie. I love gathering up knowledge and certifications based in things that I find fascinating that develop me. So like right now I'm getting certified in biodynamic breathwork and trauma release on
Oh,
somatic,
yes,
on
yes,
releasing trauma from the body somatically.
yes.
And it's such a beautiful experience because so many of my clients have had past trauma. And then when I got certified in Pilates, it was 100% because I got very curious about this one form of exercise that actually made me feel really good in my body for the first time as a bulimic struggling to find a way out. And I found the light through Pilates. And within just a couple months, I said, I have to teach this. And within a few months, I was certified. And then within a year, I was the highest paid and youngest instructor at the studio that I was working at. And
Wow.
it was because I followed that curiosity. I didn't follow this path of shoulds and supposed tos. And now I've coached multiple clients who have PhDs and NASA rocket scientists. And I've taught at colleges, and I've been offered to teach another class at a college now on leadership and entrepreneurship. And no college degree right here. But if I believed, like, imagine if I had held that belief that because I didn't go to college, that meant that I was not going to become anything like that. I would have spent the past 10, 15 years of my life just kind of waiting for life to happen instead of allowing myself and giving myself that permission to get curious. And that's the beauty of being able to really recognize that those curiosities, those desires, those things that you're interested in, those weren't put in you for no reason. Those sparks of interest, follow them, like allow them to guide you and explore and see what comes of it for you. I didn't know I was going to be a Pilates instructor for 10 years. I couldn't run a mile to save my life when I was 17 years old. Like, I was an exercise-induced asthmatic. I was bulimic. Like, tell me that I would go into the fitness industry and then start my own private studio, like, beyond me. But I followed my curiosity. And then it was from following my curiosity that I saw, okay, there's a system that I'm working in as a freelance Pilates instructor where I'm making this much, and I could be making this much if I was a studio owner. So I said, what if I just got my own little private studio and then was able to keep all the profit?
Right.
And so that's what I did. That's what got me into entrepreneurship. And then from there, I had the opportunity to then follow my curiosity again into bringing a product to market. And I saw this product, and because of my background with Pilates, that had I not followed it, I wouldn't have known about the benefits of this back stretching device and the possibilities for it. I wouldn't have been able to see it had I not had that training. And so I was able to see it, and I impressed the investor and at that moment sole owner. And I said, if you want me to consult on this, I can either consult on this, but I would prefer to partner with you on it and bring this to market. And he said, okay. And so suddenly I was the president of a $250,000 company. That's because I followed my curiosity.
So you really are like a fairy princess story. You really do have that story. And, so do you find a lot of, when you're coaching someone, what are the things that you find that people are resisting?
Their own greatness, their own success.
Wow.
I mean, it depends on also where you are. Like, I see a lot of people, they get stuck in the dungeon of doubt. And it depends. Like, if I'm working with somebody, because I've had several people who are very high established in their career, they've done marvelous things and massive accomplishments. Like, one of my clients, one of his businesses changed an entire country. Another one of my clients worked all the way up the ranks into being an executive producer in Hollywood. Like, these are, like, they work their butts off to get there. And what I found is it depends on where you are. Like, if you're starting and you've never built up that certainty within yourself, you've never had the certainty to make those audacious asks and to have the courage to just, and the audacity to just say, hey, why don't we try this? Or, hey, I could do this. And that belief in yourself, then that is something that is on one side that I see. On the other side, I see with people who already have achieved some level of success, and in their mind, it's a pretty big success. When they've already achieved some level of success, there's a fear of trying for that next thing because they fear the fall will be farther. So it always comes back to doubt and fear is the biggest thing to get in their way. And so it depends on where you are in the process. Because sometimes what I see across the board is people will trade their comfort for their own greatness.
Yes, 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 absolutely. That's what took me so long to get out.
Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes that's like the comfort may not be what you actually think is comfortable. Like making less than 5 figures a year in your business, that may not really feel comfortable, but you've gotten to the point where it's familiar. And so it's safe. So you understand that struggle of like, oh, I know what it's like to make, low 5 figures or even like mid 5 figures a year. But oh my gosh, the responsibility, what it will take to be a 6-figure earner or a 7-figure earner, that seems too much. It seems like it'll take away. And so we think of all these things that it'll take away. We think of how hard it will be to get through that process. And we also question like, well, if I get to that point, will it actually be, will it be exactly, is the grass going to be greener? Is it going to be better than what I thought? And so we have that familiarity with our own discomfort. And I totally was this way when I first started my business. I dabbled for a year and a half. So after I was bought out of my e-commerce company, I was crushed because I wished legal challenge on no one, not even my worst enemy. Not that I have one. But like dealing with lawyers for 3 months in a buyout negotiation, they don't send you the nicest emails. And what I found was it was the first time in my life where I ever had my integrity questioned, my capabilities questioned, because I just made these audacious asks. I just said, okay, let's go for it. Let's give it a go. We'll figure it out as we go. And I always had that attitude. But going through that experience of dealing with lawyers for 3 months and then, in the same 3 months planning my wedding was really challenging. And so when I had the idea for Crown Yourself on my honeymoon, I came back and I started doing what I call productive procrastination, where you're doing
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, you're doing all the things. And I had what I call now a Titanic business. So I had the photo shoots. I had the website that was quite pricey. I paid a nice price for it. I had the domain name. I had the logo. I had, the social media handles. I had all of these fancy things that made it look really nice. Problem was, it wasn't a business. It was a really expensive blog and a hobby. And what happened, because I had no products and services that I was selling, because as soon as I would think of like maybe having coaching in there, I would doubt myself. I would doubt, well, no one's going to take me seriously with all this sparkle. No one's going to understand the metaphor. And I would come up with all of these excuses that were all completely valid, because I have had some people like not want to work with me because my brand is so sparkly and, think I was too motivating, rah. And I was like, that's fine. That's you. Now I can look on that as like, oh, that's fine. That's you. And I can totally see how our businesses and our audiences would be very incongruent with each other. And that's fine. My audience works for me and they're amazing. And it's that acceptance of yourself is that you will find the right people, but I didn't have that back then. And so I spent a year and a half dabbling. And it's funny because my husband and I had this joke that I could not sit through a 15-minute, I could not get 15 minutes through a Netflix movie without whipping out my laptop. God knows what I was doing. Because I was making no money. So I have no idea what I was so busy with all the time. I was probably doing the research rabbit hole of like all the things I needed to figure out about YouTube or, posting on social media, but not actually posting on social media or writing blogs or getting them out there. I wasn't actually doing the real work of business, which is building relationships and which is building connection and building community. And when you can build relationships, and put the offers out there, that's the only way that you have a business. Is your products have to meet cash and your products and services have to meet other people's cash. Like that's the only way. That is what constitutes you having a business, is you have some sort of income coming in. Otherwise, you have a very expensive hobby.
Yes, I've heard that before. So what would you say to a brand new person who has been struggling and trying to take the plunge of entrepreneurship?
Get pregnant. That's what it took for me. But seriously, what I would say is first of all, what is the business that you're in? Like, what is the business that you're in? Who do you serve? Who would you love to serve? And then find those people and make those offers. You don't need a website. You don't need a fancy logo. You don't need to be all over social media. You don't have to have all your posts scheduled out for 3 months in advance before you get started. All you need is one sale. You just need a sale. And that's what I found, because after I found out I was pregnant, I got very resolved to immediately change. And I said, if I'm going to give birth to a child, and the title of mom, that scared me more than any other than the title of CEO or president.
Right.
I had those, like, I'd owned my own businesses. Like I knew what worked, but I didn't know what worked when it came to being a mom. And talk about stepping into the unknown. And one thing that I knew in my gut and in my soul was that if I was going to be a mom, I was going to do my best to be a great mom. And if I'm going to be a great mom, then I already knew this, that kids are going to listen far more to what you do than what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely.
And in knowing that, I had a question that was, is my life going to be an example or a warning for my son about what is possible for him? And I didn't even, without a question, suddenly it was no holds barred. I decided I'm going to be the example. Like, I'm going to show him what's possible. I'm going to show him that it is possible to live your dreams. I'm going to show him that it is possible to build a business, to do something that matters, to follow your purpose. And I will be that example for him 100%. And also to be able to do it as a present mom. So I'm not doing it like where my business is consuming all of me and I'm not able to spend time with him. I was just unavailable for that as well. I got becoming a mother got me very clear on what I was available for and what I was not. And so within a week, I was driving across country to go to Vegas to get certified in NLP and timeline therapy and hypnotherapy, and actually get the certifications that I felt I needed, not only just and the mindset work for myself to then be able to share with others. And then I started just reaching out. I had no idea how to get started on building my coaching business. So I started reaching out on gig sites. And I started reaching out, I think it was like Thumbtack or something, just reaching out to people and just saying, hey, here's my offer. Here's what I do. Here's how I can help you. And from there, I got one client. And once I got one client and I had my one sale and I made more money in that one sale, I made $2,000. I made more money than I had made I was making working as a Pilates instructor. I was like, okay, cool. I have enough certainty and trust with myself that I could, because I so like, SA, here's how badly I didn't believe in myself. I had run my own private Pilates studio since 2012 and had a steady stream of customers. After I was bought out of my e-commerce company, and I still had kept it going throughout being president of my e-commerce company. After I was bought out of that company, I didn't believe in myself so much that I didn't even believe in the business that I had already started, that I got a second side hustle job teaching Pilates at a chiropractic studio. That
Wow.
So that is how little I believed in myself. That is how crushed I was by doubt and fear. And so, like, looking back, I'm like, Kim, that made no sense. Why would you do that? But that is the power of what your mindset and what doubt can do. And
Probably
so, and what,
survival, something from the
yeah. And
survival library.
yeah, it was totally my survival library. 100%. I pulled that book out and was like, okay, I guess I got to get a job. And so I did. And that was the last job I will ever have. Not that it was, my boss wasn't amazing. She was. And she actually, when I told her that I was leaving, she said and she said this with great pride, like woman to woman. And I very much respected her. She said, because she said, when she was looking for my replacement, she said, I realized that she said, I interviewed two people, one candidate, really great instructor, not as good as you, but like definitely a qualified instructor. And she said, the other one, she's like you, she's entrepreneurial. She's like, cause I ended up like, she would hire me to do her social media and to do some of her marketing and to do her website. And so, cause these were all things I'd learned. And so I just started, I still always had it in me to make those asks. They were just so much smaller after my experience and my dance with doubt. But when I left that job, she said, I had this other woman, she's reminded me so much of you. And she goes, I actually chose not to hire. And I was like, I'm curious why. And she goes, because there can only be one HBIC. And I was like, I gotcha.
Yeah, irreplaceable.
I feel you, girl. And I said, I feel you because that's, well, and it's because when you have two leaders, two people who are entrepreneurial, like an entrepreneur can come into somebody else's business, like, and you can feel this with someone who's very entrepreneurial. I had this with one of a team member that I hired last year that I let go to let her go create her own business, because I felt that there was this desire and this passion to do her own thing, so much so that it was conflicting with the mission. And it was almost like, as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to also spot all the problems in somebody else's business. And that's kind of what makes me a good coach for my entrepreneur clients, because I'm able to see like, oh, here's where you're missing here's where your stinking thinking is clouding up your judgment on this area, or here's where you're thinking, or here's where your money mindset issues is clouding up you being able to hire someone, or here's where this thing is happening. And so I can see some of the patterns that are happening in someone's businesses just by talking to them. And so I've always had that sight. So you can kind of see that. And when you see that in somebody else's business, especially one that you work for, and you can see patterns and things that maybe or may not working, or may not, that could be improved. Not necessarily is everyone going to lovingly going to love your advice, like, and because it's their business and that's totally their prerogative. Exactly, and that's also not, yeah, that's also wasn't my position as well. It wasn't my position. I was just Pilates instructor for hire. So I wasn't coming in like as a coach or as a consultant to then say, okay, here's how we can improve this, that, and that. So it's also knowing that placement. And so if you're placing yourself with that doubt, it's gonna cloud people's trust in your recommendations anyway. And so that was a powerful lesson that I learned as well from that experience. But and it's for everybody, it's different. Like, cause I get asked this question a lot by my community. It's like, when should I leave my job and start my business? And every person, it's going to be different, but it is, and yet for every person, it's going to be the same thing. When you have built up enough trust and certainty within yourself that you can produce income, then you can leave your job. So for one of my friends, that was when she brought in 6 figures in her business. And so she worked in her corporate job until she brought in 6 figures in her business in one year. And once she did, she was like, peace out. For me, it was after I got a $2,000 client and I was like, okay, cool. I can do this again. Peace out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For me, it was, partially COVID because I had
Mhm.
downsized for a month and I had already decided that, I'm not going to be, I can't. And right now, I can't imagine going back. I don't have everything I need yet, but I still can't imagine going back to that life.
Yeah.
So, what is it that you want to leave with our listeners right now? What is it that you want to give them?
Keep the faith in whatever dream that you have and whatever in whatever thing that is kind of tugging on your heart. It wasn't given to you for no reason. And that dream, that desire, that thing, whatever it is, like that that dream is a gift, and it's your job to cultivate that. So keep the faith that you are worthy of that dream. You are totally worthy and capable of achieving it. It may take time. It probably will take time, but it will take a lot longer if you spend time doubting if that you're even worthy of that dream in the first place versus accepting the gift, being able to receive the gift of that dream, and then asking the question, okay, how do I make this a reality? I mean, that was the question that I asked myself when we decided to stay here in March in Australia. And it was a challenging decision. Like, it's definitely one that impacts my family. It was one that impacts my son and my husband. And we had to think about that. And my husband and I have always said, we've been together for 8 years, and we've always had the dream to raise our kids traveling the world where they can learn from experience. Because I think that is the greatest ability to expand diversity of thought and diversity of opinion is travel, because you can just be able to see how different cultures operate and how different countries do different things, and how just little things, but they make a difference in shaping your perspective. And so we'd always wanted to travel and the world and live in foreign countries. And as soon as we saw that lockdown was pretty much imminent and going to happen, um, I had the gut feeling and just questioned that curiosity again of like, what if we stayed? And like, what would happen? And how would things be different? And it was one thing that, my husband basically had to say, well, he knew that he wasn't sure if voiceover, which was his primary source of income, would be able to follow. And so I had to be able to say that, yes, I can support our family with my business to be able to make up for that if that were to be true. And so we definitely had some questions, but when we sat with it after, I remember the walk that my husband and I took on, and it was just this desire that we had in our heart to stay. And I said, I'm 100% certain. And he said he was 90% certain. And I knew he had some doubt and some fear. And I said, I don't care if you're 99% certain. We're going home if you're not at 100. And he said, because I said, we're a team, we're doing this together. And I said, if you're not 100% certain that this is going to be a really amazing choice for us, then we're going home, because I would honor that. And he took about an hour. He went off on his own, and he came back and he said, yeah, I'm 100% certain. He said, we're staying. And I said, okay, great. And so we let everyone know. And as soon as we did, we had all the doubters and the oh my gosh, you're so foolish, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and how
Yes,
could you be
yes, you're
so
going to hear that.
reckless? And yeah, I heard all of it. And the thing is that when I make 100% decision, like I always know when I don't make a decision, and when a decision is not at 100%, because then that doubt will sway me. But if I'm at 100% decided and that decision is basically it's done, then you will get the doubt, but there's no swaying it. Like when I decided that that I was going to birth my son naturally. I had, as soon as I made that decision and then declared it and said, this is what's happening, then I definitely got the flack. And I kind of use that as a gauge of like, okay, this is crazy. This is reckless. Okay, cool. Awesome. Cool. I'm doing this. Like that means that I've decided and I've decided what's in alignment with me. And that really turned out like choosing to stay has been one of the best decisions that was always in alignment with our vision, that has been a massive grounding in faith and trust, and learning to trust in your own ability that you can figure it out no matter what. But go from that place, make your choices from that place of faith instead of fear, because fear will keep you stuck. Fear will keep you on a hamster wheel going nowhere. And I was on it for a year and a half, and it sucked. And I was complaining, and I was blaming everybody and every other circumstance as to why I didn't have what I wanted. And all my reasons were 100% valid, but they didn't get me off the hamster wheel. What got me off the hamster wheel was getting pregnant, but getting infused with faith, and a faith and a belief that dream, that desire, that the desire to start my business, the desire to really go for it, the desire to grow it big, was not by accident, that it was given to me as a blessing, and I needed to receive it, and then I needed to work with it.
That is awesome. And so many people always have something to say. It's just like with writing a book, when I put my first book out, of course I made a mistake.
Yeah, right.
And someone let me know right away, congratulations, but you misspelled a word. And I went to my coach and I was like, you didn't tell me about the haters.
Yep. Oh my gosh, essay. So funny story real quick about misspellings. So, and here about allowing yourself to be joyously human and imperfect and wonderful. So I have had the same checkout page for my consult calls forever. So since I started actually going pro with my business back in 2016, since I started coaching, I've had the same checkout page since late 2016, I think maybe early 2017. I have made hundreds of thousands of dollars from that checkout page. Just this year, 2 months ago, somebody from our community said, hey, the call to action button is misspelled. It was spelled sumbit instead of submit. No one noticed it for 4 years. So again, like the mistakes, it all comes down to that mindset of how you perceive it. Because really the mindset, if you think of the mindset of my customers, like when they've clicked submit, or in their case, sumbit, when they've clicked submit, they were coming from that place of excitement, of inspiration, of, being unsure, of being, like maybe this is possible for me, maybe this. And so they click that button from a space of hope, not from a space of like, ooh, let me see what's wrong with your website. So it doesn't matter. Like, I have misspellings in my stuff all the time. I try not to. I suck at grammar. I fully know that. I own it. It's not my specialty. I try not to, but it happens, and it's okay. And it's because of my mindset where I say, like, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't find that to be a big deal. And if someone does have a really serious, vehement problem with me having a typo in some way, which I pretty much can guarantee there is probably one or two that you can find on my website right now. Just because I write in my kinesthetic, like I'm highly kinesthetic, and I write from that place of feeling instead of that visual kinesthetic, which is how you can much more easily catch spelling errors.
Yes.
I don't write in my visual representational system. I write in my kinesthetic. So that's why I have spelling errors and flip words from time to time. But that's like, if somebody has a serious problem with that, then I know then that's probably not the right client for me anyways. And that's okay. And that's 100% okay. And allowing that freedom to be authentically me and always still be bettering. Like that's the thing is like, and I don't fall for the excuse of, oh, this is just who I am. No, you can accept who you are and you can keep growing and improving as well. So I'm still like downloaded Grammarly so that those mistakes don't happen as often. But you can you can have those mistakes. You can allow for those messes. Just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward.
Yes, yes. So where can our audience find you and connect with you, because your program sounds awesome. It's, I mean, there's so many people who, like you said, who need the mindset shift, who need the kind of like reprogramming in their thinking, especially during this time of COVID. And over here, we're, in America, most states have already begun a second lockdown. So
yeah. So you can find me at crownyourself.com. And I did when we went through the first lockdown, I did a whole blog series on 90 days from fear to faith, to just help people get their mindset. There's in a direction. If you're a podcast listener, I also have a podcast called The Princess and the Bee, on all the things to becoming the queen of your life and your business and ruling your empire from a place of servant leadership and soul. And so you can find me on The Princess and the Bee. You can find me at crownyourself.com. And if you want to work with me, I did change the submit button. It now actually says submit.
No.
What happened, Sherry?
Oh, I know. You got to repeat that.
Oh, my goodness. No worries.
I don't know what happened.
No worries. So from where? Where should we take it from?
Go all the way from where they can find you.
I wasn't sure if I should start at the beginning of who am I.
No, we're not going on. No, we're good. We're good with that part.
Okay, cool.
We better be good with that part.
Okay. It's all good, SA. We're all good. So you can find me at crownyourself.com. If you are a podcast listener, which I would assume you are since you're listening to SA's fabulous podcast, then definitely check out The Princess and the Bees on all the bees, the business, the body, the babies, the boys, the business, the boldness, the belief systems to help you become the queen bee of your life. And on my website, you will find in my blog, I did, especially if you're struggling with a lot of fear right now. I know with COVID lockdowns and the possible, what? Sorry about that.
No worries.
And with the possible lockdowns and with all that's going on in the world, I did a 90-day blog series on 90 days from fear to faith. And so you can find so many resources in there to help guide you and your mindset to a place where you can find that faith and certainty in your ability to figure it out. Because the world is always going to be uncertain. We're always going to have uncertainty in our world. But if you can cultivate that faith in your own ability and your mindset that no matter what, you can figure it out, no matter what it is that you're going through, give you enough time, you will figure it out, then that is a blog series for you. And if you want to work with me, I definitely did change the submit button to submit, but you can just go to crownyourself.com and click on the button that says work with me.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being our guest. We have to have you back, because I think what you had to say today, many people, they see you, as this coach, and they're like, wow, look at her, but they don't know the story behind the woman, Kimberly, and what she's had to experience in order to get to this point.
Well, I would be honored to come back on your show and to speak into your audience again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we thank you once again for being our guest today. Please come back and join us. We thank everyone for listening. This has been Expanding Your Power, Women Helping Women. And remember to expand your power. Have a great week, everyone.